Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 4, and today we're taking a look at the 1968 Ford Mustang GT 2+2 Fastback. Now this was part of the first generation of the Mustang, which was produced between March 1964 and June 1973. However, in 1967 it got its first redesign of the original model, which is what this 1968 version is part of, and then it got another update in 1969 which lasted until 1970, and then in the final few years it got another redesign. But yeah, the major mechanical difference between this and the original model is the ability to install a big block V8. Now the largest engine you could get in the original model was a 4.7 litre V8 which produced around 271 horsepower and 312 pounds-feet of torque. Now the largest engine you could get in this version was a 7 litre V8. Granted, this car does not have that version, but this still does have plenty of horsepower under the hood. And yeah, because the overall size increased, which allowed that big block engine to be put in, that obviously meant that there was more interior space as well for passengers and driver. So as you can see, there's plenty of room in there. And yeah, also meant more cargo capacity, so there's quite a bit of space behind the rear seats there. And yeah, a fairly sizable boot as well. So yeah, a much more practical vehicle than the original version. And yeah, really rather nicely appointed in the interior as well. I really do like the dials and the whole layout in general, as well as the Mustang carpets. Very nicely done, quite frankly. But yeah, the like I said, the bigger difference between this and the original model is the engine, or the engines that you can put in it. So yeah, this has the 6.4 litre V8 engine, which produces 325 horsepower and 427 pounds-feet of torque. So yeah, to save you doing the maths, that's 54 horsepower more than the original model, and 115 pounds-feet of torque more as well, which is quite a sizable difference in terms of power and torque. Granted, this car does weigh more than the original version, but it's still nonetheless quicker in terms of acceleration and top speed as a result of that extra power and torque. An interesting thing to note is the amount of difference, the amount of length in between where the engine is and the front of the car, which does give it a little bit more of a good balance, because the engine is right over the front axle rather than being in front of it, which is yeah, really good in terms of handling. But yeah, the main reason why I'm really excited about this car being on the game is because it's part of the 1968 American action thriller Bullitt, which is a quintessential car chase film, as it had the pretty much iconic car chase between this and a Dodge Charger. Now granted, that Dodge Charger did have more power, more torque, and was faster in terms of acceleration, which is the case for the 1969 version car of that car that is on this game. But this personally is my favourite of the two, and yeah, purely because I love the look of it over the Charger, and yeah, it's somewhat more fun to drive. But yeah, I've wanted a late 60s Mustang like this on the game for a while. Now granted, we do have the late 60s Mustang Boss 302, but we've had that in plenty of Forza games before. We've never had this version of the Mustang in a previous Forza game. Now we have had other Mustangs that have yet to make a reappearance for a while, like the Mustang Boss 429 and the Shelby Mustang CJ, which had even more power than this, if I remember rightly. But yeah, I love the fact that this is in the game now, and yeah, I do hope it makes another appearance in the next Forza Motorsport game. Now you can make this car look like the Bullitt Mustang by changing the grille and the bumper slightly, like that, and then you can also change, go around to the back, you can change the rear lights and the rear styling as well. If you can get onto the right little button there, come on, there we go. So yeah, you can change this as well to make it look more like the Mustang in the film, because that only has 2 pipes, not 4. The rear lights have been changed as well, as you can see, and the badging has gone as well, Mustang and GT. But I'm going to keep it the same as it is now, just for the review purposes, though when it does come to me driving it on in my own time, I will be changing it, because yeah, like I said, I've always wanted this car in a Forza game, or any racing game really, and yeah, it's about time that we have had such an iconic film vehicle to be in the game, because I really love films, and Bullitt is one of my all-time favourites, so the fact that I can also play with the car that I love seeing in the film in this game as well is quite frankly magical, to be honest. But nonetheless, let's get out onto the open road and see what it's made of. So yeah, like I was saying earlier, the charger that this car went up against in the film is quicker, and even though we don't have the exact version of that car in this game, the 1969 version of that car is still quicker than this as well. It can do 0 to 60 in 6 seconds and 0 to 100 in 16 seconds, whereas this can do 0 to 60 in 6.286 seconds and 0 to 100 in 16.3 seconds. But that's not a massive difference considering the massive difference in terms of power, because that car does have more torque and more horsepower than this by quite a significant amount. And yeah, it also doesn't weigh all that much more either, despite also being a bigger car. But I personally find this to be the more fun vehicle to drive, and this does have the Charger licked in terms of top speed. Charger can do about 141 miles an hour, whereas this can do 152 miles an hour, purely because of the better gearing on the in the car, which is a case for a lot of Mustangs really, because even the original model, despite only having 271 horsepower, had a top speed of around 140, despite having a lot less power than some other muscle cars or pony cars from the time. I mean, you compare it to a Chevelle, which had more than 400 horsepower, and that can only do about 125, 130. So yeah, gearing on these 60s Mustangs has always been better, and that's always produced a better top speed. And yeah, that's just one reason to enjoy this car. Another reason is purely because of how fun it is to drive. Yes, it's not all that great to drive. I mean, those tyres are way too thin for a car with more than 400 pounds-feet of torque to deal with, but that's part of its charm. It's on the raggedy edge a lot of the time, but it's still somewhat controllable, because yeah, you will easily oversteer and you may well easily also spin out, but if you learn how to drive it properly, you will get some rather good experiences out of it, quite frankly. And yeah, quite frankly, I am pining for a Forza game set in San Francisco, quite frankly, just so we could drive this over the iconic hills against a Dodge Charger preferably. So yeah, love the fact that this is in game now, and it's easily one of my favourites out of the car pass, and easily one of my favourites from the game in general, quite frankly. And yeah, really does make me wish that we had more Mustangs from the late 60s, early 70s, because we have had plenty before in previous Forza games, and I'd really like them to make a return to go alongside this, because yeah, it's a fantastic car. Might not be the best handling muscle car from the time. I certainly think the Mustang Boss 302 is a better handling vehicle, and yeah, there are also quicker muscle cars from the time as well, because like I said, there are obviously more cars out there that have way more power than this. 325 horsepower from a muscle car from this time is really rather tame, but it makes good use of that power, and yeah, it does sound really rather good as well. And yeah, you can have plenty of fun with it, just sliding it around and pretending you're Steve McQueen, quite frankly, which is pretty much what I'm going to do in this car, quite frankly, because yeah, he is the king of cool, and he was part of the quintessential car chase movie, quite frankly, and there have been plenty of films with great car chases in them as well that have matched that film, but quite frankly, I've yet to see a film with a car chase in it that has improved upon Bullitt. And yeah, that just goes to show that despite being a more than 50-year-old film, it's still as good as it was back in the day, and this car played a crucial part in being that good. And yeah, now we've finally got it on a racing game that I like, so yeah, that just makes it all the better, quite frankly. And yeah, highly recommend you trying it out. If you haven't got the car pass yet, then I don't know what you're waiting for, because there's been so many good cars that have been added lately, and when it started out, that yeah, any of my reservations about the car pass have been mostly negated. So yeah, go out there and get it, because this is a cracking vehicle, and yeah, it's certainly improved the muscle car roster on this game. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.